Hey, what's up, everyone? This is just another Friday night. Double A here. Just wanted to say what's going on. I know it kind of looks weird right now. CM Chuck's not here today, so that kind of sucks. He had some issues going on, so unfortunately, and let me see. Oof. Sorry. Okay, let me try it again. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Thursday. We are starting a little bit early, as we have been all week, or all month, actually. CM Chun can't be with us, unfortunately, today. He's got some issues going on. I'll let him explain. He'll explain. I have with me my our good friend of the show, Big George, Loverboy Jorge DeLeon. What's going on, George?
Fans, how you doing? Loverboy Jorge's here in the house with my brother Adam.
Yes, sir. So we're gonna kind of skip the usual format. It's a little prior to New Year, so we got a lot of things going on. So CM Chuck. I don't know if you know George, but me and CM Chuck, we got an event going on the 15th at Rolling Oaks. It's going to be a wrestling show. He's getting the owner, Oscar, from that wrestling shop in toys. He used to be in the Wonderland of America. He sells nothing but wrestling toys, wrestling belts.
Yeah, I remember. I've been a few trips down there.
So he's got together a whole bunch of indie Texas promotions.
Oh, wow. And
they're going to be at Rolling Oaks Mall on January 15th. It's going to be a really cool event, a lot of the guys I don't know, but, that's what it is in the indies, right? I mean, we don't know who's going to become big. We don't know who's not going to become big. We never know that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
CM Chuck, when Shawn Michaels had his wrestling show, he saw Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, and look at the major star.
And look at him now. I mean, he's been a main eventer in Ring of Honor and WWE.
And now
AEW. So, I mean, who knows who's going to ever be somebody and not be somebody. So, to kind of get ready for it, it's about almost 3 weeks away. To almost get ready for it, I kind of wanted to talk about wrestling. Now, me and CM Chunk have done about 3 episodes, maybe 4, and you're usually kind of heavily WWF based, 80s, 90s. But one of the things
those are the best eras right there in professional wrestling.
Yeah, but it's always really kind of centered around WWF, really. Mm. This time I kind of wanted to talk about the NWA with my good buddy here, George. That's one thing that kind of me and George kind of bonded over when we first met, was our love of the NWA.
Yeah, NWA.
WWF is always great. Don't get me wrong. Great stuff, great promotion. We love Rick Rude. We love Hulk Hogan.
I was a huge
Macho Man, Warrior, Demolition.
Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, one of my favorites too.
But when you look at the NWA, oh my goodness, the environment's so much different. The style is so much different. The wrestling is so much different. The fans are different. It's like Jim Ross said. I heard on his podcast, George. He says in the WWF, it's the villains. It's the hero's job to defend the title against the villains.
It's the villains.
In the NWA, it was a little bit different. It was the hero's journey to get to that villain. Because in the NWA, most of the time the villains had the belt.
Yep.
Harley Race, Ric Flair. I mean, it was never really a good guy that held that belt for a long time.
It was always a heel because that's what draws the money. The heel, all the heat he brings. The next week somebody wants to see him. Get his due. You always want to see the good guy prevail against the bad guy. Of course, like Ric Flair, Harley Race. Like, for instance, Ric Flair, look at all the times, he's jumped Dusty Rhodes from behind, jumped Ricky Morton, Magnum TA, for example.
Yeah.
And the following week, you get excited, you want to go to the show or watch it on TV just to see, what these guys are going to do to retaliate against Ric Flair or see if they can do anything to stop the onslaught or continue the saga, or the storyline to keep the fresh feud going.
Yeah, right.
They would carry feuds, not like these modern day eras where they try to hotshot things.
Real bad.
Back then, you could have a feud just like Dusty and Flair. They had a standing running feud for 3 years, and it never got boring.
Nope.
Never once got boring.
So, and that's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about too, was the storylines. So much more different, so much more realistic. I mean, in '86, you had a gang of, the Four Horsemen. You had the Horsemen like jumping Dusty Rhodes. Can you imagine if you saw that shit on WWF with Hulk Hogan? Like, I can't even imagine. I guess the Heenan family jumping Hogan like that, and
you'll have tons of kids crying in the audience,
breaking his arm with the baseball bat. I mean, golly. So
that's a lot of kids going home crying their dad.
So that's what I wanted to talk about, was kind of like the differences and the wrestlers. Now, we just mentioned, in WWF, let's kind of started the tag teams. They had Heart Foundation. They had the Bulldogs.
Oh, the Killer Bees.
Demolition. Killer Bees. Okay. Pretty stacked tag team division.
They had a very stacked lineup.
Okay. Single stars. You had JYD, DiBiase, Rick Rude, Macho Man, Hogan, Warrior. You had a lot of good main eventers. A lot of great main eventers. You had the Rockers, back to tag teams.
Oh, yeah. The Rockers were freshly coming out as soon as the Bees were coming out.
So, yeah. So, you had that. A very exciting team, the Rockers,
Oh, yeah. The Rockers matches. Picture the Rock and Roll and the Fantastics, and it's like you get the Rockers.
Exactly. Now, on the NWA side, yeah. Now, over in the WWE, you have the Kingpin Hogan. On this side, though, you had the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, who many consider was the greatest wrestler throughout the 80s. Throughout the 80s, he was
I thought he was the greatest wrestler.
The greatest.
But then Hulk Hogan, he was also one of my idols, one of my heroes, and I was like, kind of like, it's like neck and neck. And like, you don't know, at one point, you don't know who to pick. Whether you pick Hogan or you pick Flair. I mean, you always had your group of friends, were Flair fans or your Hogan fans. Yeah,
so now, styles, again, totally different.
Totally different.
Flair is a rich playboy,
the rich kid in the neighborhood with the big house,
dirtiest, wrestler, in the game, blah blah blah. I mean, just again, the villain on top. How weird was that? For people watching just WWF, it was the bad guy that ran rough shit over everybody. So so we got that, and we got Luger. We got Sting, the total package, the man they call Sting.
You couldn't go wrong with Lex Luger. He was the total package. His mic skills were pretty good, but his in-ring was a little bit better. But he just had that physique,
oh man,
he had $1 million body.
Maybe the greatest physique in wrestling at that time.
At that time,
golly.
I always compared him when I was younger, him and Rick Rude, and like.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Rick Rude had the small stature of Lex Luger, but on a smaller scale. Most people say it was Ultimate Warrior, but Ultimate Warrior was also ripped. He was huge, but it's kind of like he wasn't as toned, or his muscles didn't show like Luger's.
No.
He didn't have those straight cuts.
Mm-mm.
Lex Luger was like, he's like an action figure you see right now.
Yeah.
James Pacific.
Yeah. And then of course
they didn't call him the total package for nothing.
And then of course you had. Then of course you get Dusty Rhodes. The NWA's pretty much the NWA's answer to Hulk Hogan. I mean, Dusty Rhodes by this point is a legendary figure, kicking ass. He's been kicking ass everywhere, around the country, Florida, the Carolinas, even New York in the 70s.
Yeah,
huge over in New York. Your answer to Ric Flair, but a guy that's always kind of, popular, that we see, right, as a wrestler, but behind the scenes, oh my goodness. I mean, this was the guy that was going one-on-one with Vince McMahon.
Exactly.
And Pat Patterson. This is the guy that was running the angles for the NWA, that was producing the promos.
Mm-hmm.
He was coming up with the ideas to kind of combat Vince McMahon. They came up with Starcade in '83. And then, and that was always a Thanksgiving tradition. Always.
It was always on Thanksgiving.
Okay, and then all of a sudden, Vince comes back.
To December.
Vince comes back with Survivor Series. I mean, this was really dirty. This was
on Vince McMahon's part, yes, because he knew that Starcade was in November. But he had his, his little I guess, arguments or something with the cable company. Well,
yeah, so Vince pretty much told him that, if you put on this NWA stuff, you're not getting WrestleMania.
You're not going to get WrestleMania.
It's kind of, real dirty stuff. So Starcade, a Thanksgiving tradition ends up moving to December. So you had that. So in order to combat what just happened, Dusty Rhodes comes up with Clash of Champions in 1988.
I remember that
free,
one. I was watching
for free, going up against WrestleMania 4.
WrestleMania 4.
And it clobbers WrestleMania 4.
All the matches on that one were like, it wasn't a bad match.
No, and then it's the classic Sting Flair.
45 minutes.
Yeah, 45-minute draw, but that's a match that everyone always says made Sting. And that's a great match. If you guys ever get a chance to watch it, it should be on Peacock if you don't have like the DVDs. What a fantastic match.
That's one of the best matches all time.
Fantastic match. Oh my goodness. And what's cool is that I read like little things like Flair, because like Sting was getting tired, right? Like as the match was going on, that's kind of like his first
Ric
Broadway.
Flair carried him.
Well, not only that, but then, at the end, he kind of tells, like, there's a part where Flair tells him, like, when they're on the floor, he goes, beat your chest.
Beat your chest.
And, Sting does that, and then he goes, scream.
I remember the documentary.
Yeah. And it's just like the brilliance, right, of Flair just doing those little things that he knows that will get the people back up again, right?
Rile them up.
Beat your chest, And man, the crowd goes fucking nuts when he does all that.
I remember that.
When he no-sells the chops, remember? Flair's chopping Sting, and Sting's just like, and man, the crowd goes fucking nuts again.
And that's when he took over. He got a second win.
Yeah.
And it was like a whole nother new match.
But little things like that, right, George? Like little calls like that, like, no sell. Don't sell my chops, And man, Flair's chops are not to be fucked with.
I know. I've heard stories because I've even seen like some YouTube videos of random jokers out there to ask for Flair to give him a chop like at a bar. I saw a video on YouTube where a guy, I guess, bought Ric Flair a drink and he asked Ric Flair if he could give him a chop. He said he chopped him, he bought him a shot, asked Ric Flair to chop him. Flair chopped him, and this guy was like on the ground crying. He was in pain because the chop alone knocked him down and he couldn't catch his wind because that's how hard Ric Flair chopped. And this is just some average Joe.
It's just an average Joe. I mean, he had like so much like dramatic, stuff like that. It's just like it was so good. So many good angles. So many good. We got from Dusty. The Bunkhouse Stampede. We got WarGames. I mean, man, how exciting was WarGames?
WarGames was my favorite.
Nothing like that had ever been done before. And two rings, being surrounded by a cage, a group of 4, or whatever. How many it was?
5.
It was 5. 5 and 5. The 4 horsemen with the top villains of the wrestling industry against your top 5 good guys.
Dusty Rhodes, Nikita at the time, and the Road Warriors. You can't go wrong with the Road Warriors right here.
Oh my goodness.
I'm one of the biggest Road Warrior fans you'll ever meet.
And how about the Road Warriors? I mean, you got the biggest tag team in the 80s. You got the team.
And this is one of the teams also that no one really says they've been in the most dangerous matches, and especially in that era, in the 80s, they've been in cage matches. They've been in street fights. They've been in Russian chain matches, the WarGames, the Tower of Doom, the scaffold match. Who can say that they've been in all those matches?
Who can? They're almost like the Undertaker, right?
Yeah,
you wanted a gimmick match, you get the Road Warriors to test it out first. I mean, those were your good guys. And with Paul Ellering, golly, what a unit this
that was the Brains, and those were the Rottweilers.
Yeah, I mean, golly. You hear Iron Man, and that was the other thing. You didn't hear, the Legion of Doom music. You heard Iron Man blasting out.
Mm-hmm.
And then
once you heard Iron Man,
the Road Warrior pop.
You knew your fate already.
I mean, man, what? I mean, yeah, sure. You had Demolition, but it was just nowhere near the Road Warriors. To me,
nobody could touch the Road Warriors, but along the way, they did get challenged by the Powers of Pain.
Yeah.
And the Skyscrapers. But there's another team that nobody talks about that also took them to their limit, and that's the Varsity Club. Dr. Death and Mike Rotunda.
Yeah.
They took the belts from the Road Warriors.
If you guys don't know Mike Rotunda, you might know him as IRS. A legit wrestler. Legit shoot wrestler. Rick Steiner was also a part of this group at that time. All legit dudes, all can stretch you, and that was the other thing about the NWA was legitimacy. everyone
These are blue
believed
collar.
you
believe every storyline they say.
Fans were not going to come to the ring against these guys.
No.
You know, you didn't. You're like, oh shit. You know, I'm not going in there with Dusty Rhodes. I'm not going in there with Ric Flair. Hell no. You know.
No way.
No way.
These guys were back then. They're blue collar. You cross paths with them. You push them. Guess what? They're gonna push back and probably even punch you.
Okay, George. So let's go back. We're kids now. Okay, and what drew you to the NWA? What was like the first guy or event that you're just like, man, NWA is fucking badass? Because I know George here is probably your biggest NWA fan that you will ever know. Okay, he was schooling us about all the NWA stuff about. No, you know, it wasn't Demolition. Road Warriors were first, you know.
Yeah, Road Warriors.
What drew you to the NWA?
What drew me to the NWA? When they were flipping the channel, because we would watch a lot of, you know, Texas All-Star Wrestling here in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm. Texas was a huge NWA territory. Huge.
And also, too, the Road Warriors also made a cameo here in Texas All-Star Wrestling. At that time, the Sheep Borders were the
very violent. You may not know, you might know them as the Bushwhackers. They went by sheep herders, and they were a very, very violent team. It's
like the Briscoes of the modern era.
Yeah, not the licking the kids and everything. No, these guys were super violent, a super violent bushwhacking team.
Yeah, you didn't want to cross paths with the Bushwhacker or the sheep herders because they would take it to you.
If you have time, look at footage of put in sheep herders. And check out, you got any matches specifically you can recommend for anyone for the sheep herders?
For the sheep herders, I would say the sheep herders against Al Perez and Manny Fernandez. Those two guys.
Al Perez and Manny Fernandez. Check that one out on YouTube. I'm pretty sure you can find it. So you're watching Texas wrestling. You're seeing the sheep herders. Who else are you seeing?
I've seen guys like Manny Fernandez, Cowboy Scott Casey, the Mummy, which our brother Mario's favorite. For some reason, he loved the Mummy and Adrian Street. Who can go wrong with Adrian
Adorable
Adrian Street and Miss Linda.
Miss Linda, yeah.
Also, there's another guy that's kind of impressive. He kind of reminds me like the Dusty Rhodes of the Texas of the NWA. His name was Bob Sweetan.
Okay.
Maybe because he was another brawler.
And where are you watching? Is this Joe Blanchard's territory? This one Fritz's
No,
area?
it was it must have been Joe Blanchard.
Joe Blanchard, okay.
So he had him, and I remember watching Sweet Tan fight, and also he had one of the best, beautiful power drivers ever.
Oh, love the power driver.
One of the best ones. For a man his size, he connected it right. I remember one match I was watching that they brought in Jerry the King Lawler, because Lawler said he was the king of the power driver. Mm-hmm. So Lawler came down, Texas All-Star Wrestling. They had their promos against one another, and then when the match came, the match was pretty good, but you can't go wrong with Jerry Lawler's power driver.
No, hell no. You're talking about the king.
The king.
No. There's probably no better power driver than his. I'm sorry, Mr. Wonderful.
Yes, Mr. Wonderful.
Okay, so let's stay in Texas. Obviously, our big guns in Texas is going to be the Von Erichs.
The Von Erichs.
World-class championship wrestling. All right?
Man, world-class. And that's another one we used to watch every Sunday at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
Kerry, Kevin, David. You got Chris Adams. You got Gino Hernandez. You got Iceman King Parsons.
You got Devastation Incorporated.
You got maybe what everyone considers one of the greatest feuds of wrestling history, the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds.
No other feud and no promotion anywhere came close to the Von Erichs and the Freebirds, and it's the Four Horsemen, Dusty, and the Superpowers.
It's Texas versus Georgia. It's rock and roll versus nobility, I guess.
Nobility. It was kind of hard to tell with the
wholesomeness of the Von Erichs against the drinking, the partying of the Freebirds.
Which they did, behind the scenes.
Oh,
they all partied together.
Yeah, they all partied together. Yeah. But I mean, golly, what a great styles clash, right?
Yeah.
You got, the Von Erichs. First off, they look like superstars.
Yeah, just look at them together. They're the big thing. They're the big thing in the room.
Golly, Kerry. You just see Kerry, and everyone pops.
Yeah. And that was pre. Kerry, pre-Ultimate Warrior body right there.
Then you got the Freebirds. You got Michael Hayes, the talker. You got Terry Gordy, the powerhouse.
You
got,
Buddy
Roberts,
the real muscle. He was the real muscle.
The real muscle, but the guy kind of like, you know,
he took the bumps.
weasel.
Yeah,
you know, the group. You know, the one that gets his ass kicked most of the time. But, you know, you have this badass imagery. They're all blonde. They all come out with Leonard Skinner music.
And they come out with the Southern flags.
They come out with the robes. I mean, golly, it looks great.
Oh, yeah.
The imagery is great. They got so much heat here in Texas. I mean, golly, anyone that went up against the Von Erichs were just instant heels.
Yeah, instant heels.
Man, the wars. It lasted from about...
It went from 83 to, I believe,
almost 86.
Almost 86.
Almost a 3-year run. Can you imagine that? And still keeping people tuned in.
Yes.
Still wanting to see that feud going.
Want to see it. Don't let it stop. Keep it going as much as you can.
Keep it going.
Despite the losses of the Von Erichs, they made it happen, and for some reason, they made it work.
Yeah, I mean, golly. Not a big roster, though, on that world class, though, right?
Not too much of a big roster. And I will say the next upper mid-carder behind them would be Chris Adams, Gino Hernandez.
Man, oh man, when he turned heel, Chris Adams, when he joined Gino Hernandez,
I think that was a match.
Oh my gosh. Man, the heat those two guys drew. Again, I mean, this is at a time when, and this is kind of what I loved about the NWA when I kind of go back, because people really felt this was real wrestling.
It's really, it's believable.
Yes, this WWF. It made you want to go back. It was like people knew WWF was kind of like Showtime, right? Like it was kind of like a Broadway play.
Yeah.
You know, it was you know.
Okay, you want to compare HBO Showtime? Okay, the NWA World Class, that's HBO. Yes. WWF was Showtime.
It was like for everybody, right?
Yep.
NWA was just like, golly, you're gonna get your fucking ass kicked if you touch Kerry's face. You know, I mean, the fans were seriously behind the Von Erichs. They loved them, mobbed them.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And if you kind of look at it now, and I would kind of like fear more for the wrestlers at that time, even though at that point we didn't see or acknowledge it. Just them coming down that thin little aisle. I mean,
how scary is that too? With just a rope holding them back.
And not only that, you're like about a foot away from the fans. I mean, I'm surprised that somebody didn't get sucker punched and actually showed it on TV if it was live.
Man. Ooh,
or kicked or even stabbed or something.
You know the energy that the fans had for these wrestlers, where they just believed that they were these powerhouses, they were just outright villains, I mean, people love to hate the Freebirds.
They love
the Von Erichs. You see the footage of the Von Erichs, women are just pulling them in, trying to kiss them, grabbing them. I mean, golly.
Put them, they kiss them, they tear their robes off, scratch them, anything they do just to get a feel of the damn Von Erichs.
Man. I mean, so right there, just here in Texas, we had major territories, we had major stars. And, how big of a thrill was it when the NWA champion, because this is the other cool thing about the NWA champion. At this time, the NWA was all over the country. They had territories in Mexico. They had territory in Puerto Rico. Canada, they had territories. They had territories in Japan. They had territories in Australia. I mean, it was everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of like the world champion had that forbidden door, like they call these days, and he can travel to wherever he wanted to defend the title against the top contender there.
But what was cool is that usually at this time in the 80s, the NWA champion was considered the champion. Yeah, you had the WWF belt. You had the AWA belt. But most of the time, people were going to recognize...
Yeah, that's our champion.
The NWA champion was pretty much the recognized heavyweight champion, even though nobody would say it. Okay, so how cool is it that when you had a Harley race or a Ric Flair come to your territory and you actually got to see the NWA championship, the actual belt,
and it's right here,
the top belt being defended? I mean, how cool is that? Because every local promotion had their own major title. Everyone did. They had their own heavyweight. But the NWA belt, to see that belt being defended in your hometown, I mean, golly. To see Ric Flair maybe 5 times?
Come face your champion?
5 times maybe a year if you got lucky, if you booked him, if they got him booked, I mean, golly. Do you see him go up against Kerry, David? I think he even had matches with some of the Freebirds, right? When they were good guys too.
He had a match, I think, with Michael Hayes, and I also recall him having a match with Chris Adams, and he also fought Gino.
Yeah, there you go. So I mean, do you see?
He even fought Gino too in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, Bruiser Brody. He would go up against Bruiser Brody. It's a really cool thing that the NWA had, the traveling champion. I mean, the bloodbaths in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. The blip as nobody shows up anymore since
since Bruiser. But for a while, I was
they were hot
NWA territory. I mean, Giant Baba was a huge, territory for NWA too.
Yeah, he also wore the belt.
And winning the belt was such a big thing for Baba, even if it was just like a few days. Just the fact that he held it.
He held the belt.
Was a big deal.
And gave it recognition in Japan.
I mean, Giant Baba was a big deal. A lot of people kind of
don't really talk about him or don't know him.
Well, they know Inoki more because of New Japan. How it's pretty much the #1 Japanese company now. But
you've seen Inoki too a couple of times.
But in all Japan,
WWF.
In all Japan, though, I mean, Baba was it. Baba was the top promotion. Okay, so we got that. We got our Texas territory. At one point, even the WWF was a territory of the NWA before they broke up. You had so many. You had West Coast, East Coast. Who was your favorite NWA champion?
My favorite NWA champion? Woo! Ric Flair.
Ric Flair. What many consider the greatest champion of all time.
The greatest of all time. I mean, look at his day. I know you got a few guys like John Cena and Randy Orton that are right there in the mix to capture how many times they've won the belt. But at the same time, too, for these guys, I mean, they don't have the legendary status of Ric Flair.
No.
To them, they're trying to capture, okay, well, Ric Flair won it 16 times. I want to win it 16 and break his record 17. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. But at the same time, too, how many times have your matches been talked about? How many times have these matches been legendary that they're still talked about even by other legends?
But not only that, George. I mean, it's not just the title reigns, but the length of the title reigns. There's times that Flair would hold it for a year,
2 years,
2 years at a time. I mean, a lot of people don't talk about that. How long he had
don't have long title reigns these days.
He was pretty much a champ the majority of the '80s, just like Hogan was a champ the majority of the '80s.
I think Hulk Hogan had a 4-year spill.
He had a 4-year reign. Yes, uninterrupted. But I mean, and Flair would lose it. He would lose it but he would barely lose it for like a week, 2 weeks sometimes.
Something
a few days.
I don't get how he lost it to Ronnie Garvin.
You know what? No one really does. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot of people said it was a shock factor because it was during the Great American Bash Tour. That it was just kind of wow, Ronnie Garvin won it. Now Flair could maybe lose to anyone now. I think it was kind of like a shock value. That you could see a potential title change. So that's what I've heard.
But then again, Ronnie Garvin was hot. He was hot for several years in another territory. He was at. I think it was in Florida.
But see, that's the thing though. It's kind of like, okay, you can be hot in one territory, but if you're NWA champion, you got to be a draw everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That was a lot of pressure. Not just one territory. You got to
be draw. You got to make appearances.
Yeah.
It's a lot. People don't think it's just go home and win the belt, go home. Not.
And then that's the other thing with the territory system, right? It's kind of like, well, everyone wants to book. Can I have the champion this week? Can I have the champion this week? And it's kind of like, before you know it, oh shit, 6 months are already booked up for this champion. I mean, that's a crazy amount of schedule. For the NWA champion.
The only trooper that could live up to that schedule is Ric Flair.
They said a lot of people are saying he's the only one that managed to do that schedule.
Yeah, he put his personal life aside to be the nature boy.
Multiple times.
Yeah, multiple times.
Okay, so we get there, kind of like the 80s kind of start around Starcade for NWA, for peakness again. You got the legendary...
That's the main draw.
Harley race, Ric Flair bout. At that time, that was the feud that was going on. Ric Flair, Harley race.
Yes, it was.
One of the hottest feuds.
I remember seeing some of those highlights, too. I may have seen the match. Probably don't remember, but years down the line, I did see the match. It was a great match. It wasn't the best match, but it was a great match.
Yeah. Now at this time, they start kind of getting younger now. You get Flair coming in. You get Piper coming in. You get Ricky Steamboat coming in. You get
Magnum.
Jay Youngblood. You get Sergeant Slaughter that's a hot heel at this time.
Yeah, he was.
Magnum TA. Dusty Rhodes is lighting up everywhere. I mean...
Even the Briscoes were still at their prime.
The Briscoes, yes. Jack and Jerry Briscoe. Yeah. Huge rivals to Jay and Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood. Another exciting, underappreciated tag team.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky Steamboat, Jay Youngblood. What are your thoughts about them?
Ricky Steamboat, they were a good team. I didn't see many of their matches, but the matches that I did see against we just talked about?
The Briscoes?
The Briscoes?
Yeah.
It was a technical match. It was a good match. But to be honest with you, I think that's like the only match I've seen with them.
Well, I know, and I know also they had like a top drawing feud with Sergeant Slaughter and Don Cornudo too.
Oh, okay. I missed that one.
That was huge. Yeah, that was huge too. So you got Steamboat though. I mean, man, another
Steamboat's young, fresh.
Phew. Him and Flair are already tearing it down at this point. Way before 1989 would come in.
Yeah, they also have feuds in the early '80s too for the United States heavyweight title.
So all these guys are making they're coming up, and before you know it, WWF comes. They steal Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah, that was
they
a big loss.
Sergeant Slaughter. They take they take the Briscoes. The Briscoes even take the I mean, it's kind of like golly, that's kind of the thing about
Piper.
this.
They needed a rival for Hogan.
It was like golly, so that's kind of like the thing, kind of like, well, shit, they're not supposed to be going anywhere,
They're supposed to stay here. I want them here. They shouldn't be going here. It's just like the Von Erichs. You never want to see them leave world class.
No,
or the Freebirds.
That's always the thing, and it's kind of like still kind of the of today. Impact would lose their wrestlers, and Ring of Honor loses their wrestlers.
Yeah, and then they wind up in AEW or they wind up in WWE.
Yeah, so I mean, golly. So what are some of your favorite feuds from the NWA that you would recommend to people? What are some of your favorite feuds?
Some of my favorite feuds, I would recommend Ric Flair, Magnum TA.
Okay.
The short feud between Nikita Koloff and Magnum TA. Of course, Dusty and Flair. You can't go wrong with that. Another match that no one really talks too much about, the Rock and Roll and the Andersons. Those are good matches.
Andersons. Okay.
Those are good matches.
I thought you were going to say Midnight.
I love the Midnight too.
Okay.
Midnight and Rock and Roll always had great chemistry, but the Andersons was the ones that really took it to the Rock and Roll.
Okay.
They
and you're talking about Arn and
Ole Anderson.
And Ole Anderson. Okay.
Ole can't go with the old man Ole, a grouchy old man.
Okay, so some of my favorite feuds obviously were Flair Steamboat. That was always fun. Midnight, just seeing Midnight just against Rock and Roll or the Horsemen.
Oh, yeah.
Or the original Midnight.
That was another good one.
That was always fun.
Man, Paul Heyman and Jimmy Cornette.
Man, oh man.
I remember watching it that time. Like, man, I got two motor mouths going at it finally.
One of my favorite heels was Tully.
I love Tully.
As a Horseman or just a solo. Man, that guy was just, you never wanted to root for that motherfucker,
He's like that pesky little guy, that he knew he could get away with whatever he did, and he'd cheat, and he knew he did it, and he was proud of it, and he didn't care what you thought about it.
And then, George, tell me, what do you think about the Koloffs? Oh, my God.
The Koloffs were good.
Just super hated team. Nikita,
they drew that heat, because at the time, remember, the United States was a war with Russia.
Yeah.
So, they brought the heat. They brought a lot of heat with them.
But, oh my goodness, you got Nikita, this jacked up.
You have to have Crusher Khrushchev.
And, Smash. You would probably know him as Smash later on. Yeah.
Smash.
Man, oh man. Road Warriors come in during that time from the AWA. Fresh off from the AWA. They come in and they have this explosive feud.
Yes, they came in.
They were the bad guys, and then
they turned instant good guys.
Instant good guys because of the Koloffs.
And then not only that, they came in, attacked the Koloffs, and they were wearing the AWA tag team titles.
The belts, right?
The belts.
How cool was that too to actually see that Vern would actually,
let them.
He had a good.
Either that or the Road Warriors just didn't.
They didn't give a fuck, right?
Fuck.
So I mean, but it was so cool, right? You had the top AWA tag team going against the top NWA tag team. I mean, golly,
yeah, that was a good feud. The Koloffs and the Road Warriors.
And it kind of sucks because I don't think people talk too much about Ivan. But I mean, Ivan is such a.
They figure he's just a short old man.
But I mean, man, his history.
He's a former WWF champion.
He's the one that ended Bruno's reign.
Yeah.
He's the one that shocked everyone. A Russian champion. Golly.
This guy beat Bruno? Are you kidding me?
But if you look at Ivan Koloff when he was younger, man, that guy was a beast too.
Yeah.
That guy was big too. He wasn't Nikita Koloff like physique wise, but that dude was big.
He was double tough.
Yeah. Nikita, tell me about your impressions of Nikita and kind of like his story, his run in the NWA.
In the NWA, looking at Nikita,
it goes pretty. It's pretty. Kind of down. Yeah.
Kind of roller coaster. I'm just looking at Nikita. God, this guy's huge. This guy can. he can match power with the Road Warriors. He looks like he can go 1-on-1 with like Flair or Dusty, and then
which he did.
Yeah. And they turned out to be good matches.
Yeah.
For Nikita
Starcade 85 is Nikita
85.
and Flair.
Nikita Flair. That was a good match too.
What do you think about his rivalry with Magnum TA over the U.S. title? I mean, it has to be one of the best feuds for that.
That was a great feud. Him and Magnum TA.
I mean, it was kind of like the Ultimate American versus the Ultimate, Russian, right?
Ultimate
Soviet Union, right?
I think if Magnum would have gotten that car accident, I think that feud could have probably carried for at least 2 years,
it probably
maybe more.
Yeah.
That one could have been another great storyline, possibly even for the world title. Because remember, Magnum TA was scheduled to take the belt from Flair, so they would have probably kept it on him.
So you think he would have won?
I think he would have won.
And then you think he would have brought Nikita up?
Brought up Nikita.
Okay.
And then at the same time, keep Flair in the mix. That way, you don't downgrade your former champion because Ric Flair is Ric Flair.
Yeah, of course. You got to have that ultimate villain, right?
Yep, you got to have that ultimate villain.
Okay. And then, so the accident happens, unfortunately. We never really get to see what could have been with Magnum. We don't ever get that.
It's always
it's going to always be a what if. What if, could he have been a champion? How long would he have been a champion? Could he have taken NWA to newer heights?
Yeah.
We don't know.
No.
So
I believe it probably could. He would have taken it to a greater stature, kind of like what Kerry did after David died, like in that stature, high but not kind of like up there,
And Magnum kind of already had his thing with the Horsemen. He already had a big feud with Tully.
Mm-hmm.
The great I Quit steel cage match.
Oh, that's one of the best matches. Steel cage matches ever.
Oh man. He has his teams up with Dusty. He's already feud with Flair. He has this hot feud with Nikita. So I mean, man, he was, people were behind this dude, man. People were.
But if you ever noticed too, you see any Magnum TA matches, the man never smiles. And I know it's been brought up before, and even so, he looks like he's always mad or upset. When he turns around and looks at a woman out in the arena, yeah, he cracks a smile because he sees what he likes. But other than that, he just never seemed like he was happy. Like I guess pretty much.
But that's kind of good in a way, right? Because you're about to be in a wrestling match.
But for being a face.
Yeah.
But for that modern time, I can understand this era.
Yeah.
But back then, I mean, I don't know. But I would have loved to see him wear that belt.
It would have been interesting. He
would have been wearing this belt right.
It would have been interesting to see where he would have gone with it, how long he could have taken it, because it looked like Dusty was going to push this guy all the way.
He was going to push him. But with that being said, if it wasn't for Magnum TA getting into the accident, Barry Windham would have never had those matches.
Yeah, Barry would have came back.
Because as soon as Magnum had the accident, Dusty caught up his buddy's
Which
son.
I'm glad he did, because man, oh man, for whatever,
he's a very, very underrated star.
But for whatever reason, he would always leave, go to the WWF, and then the WWF just would never do anything with that dude. Every time
tag team champion, that's about it. That's as high as he got.
That was about as high as he got. Then the rest of the gimmicks were just horrible. Every time he went over,
his worst one was not the Widowmaker, but remember the Stalker.
Geez. Yeah. Back to kind of Nikita though. So after that happens, he kind of has a change of heart storyline wise, right?
Yeah, change of heart.
He's like, godly, Magnum TA has earned my respect, blah blah blah. He shows up unexpectedly to hear Dusty, probably one of the loudest pops I've ever heard. Dusty's going up against, I think it's Arn and Oli, and right behind him is Nikita Koloff. It's a great clip. If you guys ever get a chance, check out the clip on YouTube. He's coming down with Nikita backing him up, and Nikita gets in the ring, and at first he's unsure whether he should help Dusty. Dusty's kind of getting beat up by the Andersons, and all of a sudden Nikita just goes in and starts wailing on Oli, and man, oh man, that crowd just goes ape shit over that. I mean, it's a guy that, you're booing very heavily a few years ago, the Russian Nightmare, and now he's like one of the hated
Russian, and all the proud Americans are cheering the hell out of him.
Now he's like one of the...
He's a hero.
He's a hero now. And man, again, go on YouTube for that clip. That clip is amazing. The pops, I mean, again, it's just the fans, man. They really believed it. They really bought into it.
That's the thing. If the fans buy it, it's sold.
Sold, man. Okay, so we go. How about we talk about one of the greatest factions ever? what everyone always considers the first real
The Four Horsemen,
game.
right here.
Four Horsemen. What's your favorite lineup, first off?
No, my favorite line of the Horsemen, the original four.
With Oli.
With Oli.
Okay. Were you a fan of the other ones?
I was another fan of the Barry Windham.
The Barry Windham?
And also the Luger one was pretty good.
Was okay?
But then it kind of transitioned going down when they broke up.
Well, that's when they just started needing to build up someone, right? That's what they used the Horsemen for later on.
At one point, they had said that Kendall Windham was going to be one of the Horsemen, and then another idea that they're going to put the Road Warriors in the Four Horsemen. Like, how can you put the Road Warriors in the Four Horsemen?
That would have been weird.
That would have been horrible.
Well, I didn't like it when Sting joined.
I wasn't.
Man, that looked terrible.
I wasn't too big a fan.
But the imagery looked terrible too.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that because you got your big major star teaming up with another major star, and then you can make them part of the group. In other words, just saying you don't want to face this guy.
It just didn't fit.
It didn't fit at all. It left a bad taste.
But what a cool kind of idea, or how it fell into place, whatever you want to believe. They said it was an accident that all four of them were there at the same time, and then that's when Arn Anderson, gave his famous promo. I mean, something very unique, to have like a real gang of four friends.
They were a brotherhood,
right? And so much different than anything else you've seen. Again, you've seen wrestlers get jumped, but this is the first time it was actually like a group that stuck together.
They stuck together like blood.
If anyone tried attacking Flair, the Horsemen came out.
If you mess with Flair, you mess with Arn, you're gonna get attacked by all of them.
Golly, and it was like no one was safe for those 2 years maybe.
Actually, three and a half.
Well, I can't remember before Arn and Tully took off.
So you go from
86,
85.
Oh, 85.
They 85, okay. And then all the way down to like
about 89, right?
About 88. 88. Because by that time, 88, they were actually in the Survivor Series already in that 10-man tag.
So I mean, you got already the biggest villain in wrestling with Ric Flair. You team up with Tully, who nobody just likes. No one likes that dude.
That pesky little.
And then you got the Andersons, again, a team that just no one likes. I mean, what, and the things that they do, the rough shit they run over the NWA at this time.
Do you remember that one clip of the Four Horsemen when they followed Dusty? You can look it up on YouTube as well. When they followed him in that famous scene and it got a lot of heat. They followed Dusty Rhodes going to the...
Again, they're stalking it.
Yeah, they're stalking it. They follow him behind in the Cadillac. They get up, they jump him. They tie him up to a plumber's truck. Then they get a baseball bat. Then they blacked it out. And they acted like they just broke his arm with a like a mob hit.
Like a mob hit. I was like, golly, I mean, that was something that you just didn't see. Again, you're not going to see this kind of stuff in the WWF programming, right? You weren't going to see Hogan get stalked by someone, you weren't going to see bats, on TV, I mean, golly.
Hogan barely want to get hit with a steel chair as much as a baseball bat.
Again, how different was that? I mean, how far was that? I mean, that was pretty damn crazy,
That was
right?
crazy. And at that time, the TBS station got heat for that.
I bet. I mean, you're kind of showing, this, a gang stalking this, other wrestler.
Behind.
And then they attack him with baseball bats. I mean, golly. And, it just keeps brewing and brewing. They keep picking up enemies. Dusty Rhodes is always going to be a major enemy. Then, the Road Warriors, that becomes another major enemy of the Horsemen. Mm-hmm. This is all building up until we eventually get WarGames.
Yeah.
This great idea from Dusty Rhodes.
The first WarGames was the best one. You can't compare any other WarGames.
The heat that was there, the intensity that was there. I mean, golly, it was so great, right? Even the managers, J.J. Dillon
and Paul
Ellering. I mean, the promos, you see the back and forth promos, and you just believe that these fucking 8 men want to kill each other.
I always got to look forward when they would show the commercial to it, because you see the guy, you see the welders, you see the putting this big cage together. It kind of looks like they're starting like with steel rods and then putting the cage on it. Well, that wasn't the case. It was just the cage. But for the commercial, they're trying to sell you.
Yeah, I mean, and it sure did. I mean,
just by watching it, it was like, oh my god, this thing's gonna be intense. It's gonna be brutal.
And again,
I almost thought at one point, man, somebody's gonna die in that thing.
I mean, and it's just cool, right? Because again, this is kind of something very unique. You get your most popular wrestlers against the most hated faction, around. I mean, what a cool idea! What a great gimmick! And they're always smart to kind of send the heroes, winning. Because shit, if the Horsemen won, there's gonna be a riot for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely gonna be a riot, especially with Tully Blanchard and Ric Flair running amok.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what's so cool, because you can base these kind of ideas based around the fans' reactions, right? I mean, again, kind of going back to it, that was what was so great about the NWA was the fans, the fan reaction.
The fans make the match better just by their reactions alone, and it drew the wrestlers even more, and you got more out of the match because of the fans. The fans cheered you, or they booed the hell out of you.
Now, what do you think though when they kicked out Ole? I mean, that was kind of crazy, right?
That was kind of like, I was like, why would you kick out? That's one of your main horses right there, Ole Anderson. I mean, I even to this day I still don't understand why, but then again it's behind the scenes. But I totally disagree. I just believe that Ole Anderson should have had a longer run. I would have rather seen Ole Anderson in the WarGames than Lex Luger.
But what did you feel about Luger being in there, kind of matching the power of the
Road Wars? But I still want to see, Ole Anderson, seeing him at his fullest in the cage, to see what he's capable of with all the guys together in the mix, and to see how he did in the WarGames.
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
I want to see how much Ole Anderson can tolerate and how much he can't tolerate being inside confined, not being able to go anywhere, because he's one of those too. Yeah, he was the Rock in the ring, but he would sneak off too.
Yeah. Now, what's your thoughts about the total package, though? Luger.
Luger's one of my old-time friends when I was younger.
Great moves.
Great moves.
Super
perfect
strong.
Physique. He looked like Zeus.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the man's body was great. The torture rack.
In the beginning, his promos weren't too great.
No.
With experience,
Luger is never really. You're never going to know Luger for his promos. Even in the '90s, you're never going to get that really from Luger too much.
Nah. He would talk loud and talk fast in his promos, but in the ring, he made up for it.
Oh, man. What a beast that guy was, huh? Mm-hmm. And to actually see him go up against the Road Warriors, Hawk, Animal, I mean...
To match par with the Road Warriors, that's saying a lot. It's like Nikita with the Russians.
What I like about this move is that, you get Ole out, then you start pairing Arn and Tully together.
Yeah, that was
That was probably the best team. That was my favorite team out of all the Horsemen, was them two.
Tully and Arn?
Tully and Arn. Man, those guys...
I like Tully and Arn, right, too. But I don't know, it was just something about Ole and Arn just having them together. And
it was good.
They made a great team.
It was good, but I really enjoyed Tully and Arn's work. From the NWA to the WWF. I really enjoyed their work a lot. I loved the way they work against the Road Warriors. Loved how they work against the Rockers.
The Rockers and the Rock and Roll Express, too.
Demolition. I loved how they worked with every team. They were just a really great team, against... Sting and Nikita too, or I forget who else they wrestled with. I know Sting. They wrestled tag team matches with Sting and a partner of Sting. I forget.
I think probably Eddie Gilbert or maybe Rick Steiner.
Yeah. So I mean, it was always great. Those two were just gelled completely. Love that team. Luger gets kicked out because he starts wanting the title shot.
He wants the title shot.
He starts winning. He gets the title opportunity in there. And, you're in a Horseman. You're like, okay, You're not supposed to want the title shot. Our guy is Flair.
You're supposed to keep that title, not go after this.
You're supposed to keep it around this man's waist. You're not supposed to want it for yourself. They throw his ass out. They get, Barry Windham.
Barry Windham. That was a great pick.
Now, this is the foursome that everyone just considers the greatest incarnation of the Four Horsemen, by far.
That's my second best Four Horsemen, Barry Windham.
This is a time when they actually do take over all the NWA. You got Flair as a heavyweight champion. You got Windham,
the United States champion, and
Tully and Arn, the tag team.
They make the rock and roll for him.
I mean, godly, you get the 4 major belts. Now it's kind of like, damn, did it show like just how good they were, how popular they were? I mean,
I get to throw both, and not only that, they all had it in the ring. You couldn't match move per move, especially when it came to Windham, Arneson, Tully, and Rick.
Golly, I mean, what a devastating foursome. Great
That was
team.
a great unit.
Tell me about your thoughts on Dusty.
I like Dusty. Dusty was a great worker. He was a great showman. best promos in the business.
Man, those promos.
That match can cut a promo.
Those promos. Golly. What do you think about, his whole shtick? Did you love him as the main good guy? Did he take up too much space as the main good guy? Did you want to see somebody else in that position?
Honestly, I thought Dusty fit the bill the way he was.
Perfect.
He was perfect for what he did. Because he was promoting the match, creating the match, talking about it backstage, creation, and everything went well.
Guys, Dusty Rhodes.
He's very, very an underrated booker.
Underrated, genius. This was a guy, again, I was telling you at the top of the show, this is a guy that was pretty much going up against McMahon and Pat Patterson.
Yeah, they mocked him too at the same time.
Crockett, he's the owner, but Jim Crockett's not going to have really too much input. He let Dusty do that.
Yeah.
Dusty was the showrunner. Dusty
ran
was
the
his
show.
guy.
He ran the show.
That was the director of his whole company, Dusty. Dusty's a guy who comes in, with all these great gimmicks, with all these angles, put the Horsemen together, leave the belt on Flair, have multiple good guys come so they can have more main event guys, get the Road Warriors super hot, get the Midnight Express so hated, bring in Rock and Roll Express, and make them the hottest tag team in all of wrestling. I mean, man, people love Rock and Roll.
Those were 3 out of the 4 major teams in the NWA.
Yeah.
Tully and Arn, the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll, and the Midnight.
The scaffold matches, the Texas death matches, golly, this man was just...
The 2 out of 3s.
This man was just pouring out ideas, trying to, establish the NWA as the most dominant wrestling organization.
And he did a very good job.
Great job. Great
Great job.
I mean, elevating so many people, to main event status. When they went to the WWF, they never
got past
that level. Luger was never hot in the WWF.
Only the only time he got hot was going to get ready to fight Yokozuna, but then they switched the plans.
They fucked that up. So Luger was never a big deal in the WWF. The Road Warriors, golly, what a big letdown. I mean, they had titles,
they did okay, but it wasn't
the same.
It wasn't the same.
It was not the same in the AWA or the NWA.
I didn't care too much for the red.
Man, I just everything was just golly,
Even when it went back prior Attitude Era.
Yeah. I mean, it just wasn't. It wasn't the Road Warriors.
They demolished the Road Warriors as soon as they walked in the door.
Yeah. I mean, they
had a few good matches, but in the end, all they did was just destroy the greatest tag team of all time.
And we talked about how bad Barry Windham's was used.
It was horrible.
I think the only guys that really, did a really good job was Steamboat. Steamboat really excelled over there.
Steamboat's one of the only ones.
And 3 of the Horsemen, Tully and Arn. And
Rick naturally, because Rick's the man.
And Arn and Tully had a really good run.
They were Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yeah. But, I mean, as far as that, Dusty was, golly.
They put him in polka dots.
You got this guy that was, like, the Hard Times promo, going up against the Horsemen, going in WarGames, and he gets fired from the NWA for a very controversial angle. Then goes over there, polka dots, sapphire. It's just...
Yeah, to me, they just very, very downgraded. I don't think they respect him.
How disrespectful, though,
Yeah,
right?
they didn't respect him.
Okay, sure, this is a guy that went up against you, but, you signed him now. He's with you, It's almost kind of like Harley Race, JYD, It's like, man, those guys were just never used like they were. Harley was never really seen as being respected, as being, the heavyweight king for a long time. And JYD was so big, in Mid-South, and you never really saw that.
He wasn't as big as JYD in the WWE. He was, I would say, kind of like mid-cardish, a little bit higher, but not. It didn't go over.
So it's kind of like, golly, it's kind of like it made you wonder why certain people went to the WWF, right? It's like you're just not getting.
And also because JYD was also in World Class, and he did great there.
Yeah, he did great there. Yeah. Okay, Dusty, great, genius. What about Steamboat?
Steamboat?
Golly, when that man comes back, after his WWF run, about 4 WrestleManias in, has what many consider the greatest WWF match at that time. Up to that time, what many consider the greatest match with him and Macho Man at WrestleMania 3. He comes back, and him and Flair. You know,
those are great. All 3 matches were good. All 3 of them.
What many people consider the greatest babyface of all time.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I agree. He never once turned heel.
Never once.
Never once turned heel. But you showed me one time on a video where he had a heatish promo with Mick Foley.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the only time.
The Ring of Honor stuff, right? Yeah.
That's the only time he had a heel.
the hardcore wrestling, right?
A short heel run.
Yeah. But tell me about Steamboat, because I love Steamboat. I got to meet him. Huge thrill for me to meet him. You know, this is, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I mean,
to me, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Very underrated.
My favorite hip tosses from that guy. Golly, he claps his hands and swings your ass over. I mean, golly, the man was so. Again, the physique was all there. Great physique.
Everything.
The wrestle matches, wrestling fast.
And he can cut good promos
And he can cut promos. What are your thoughts about the famous trilogy of him and Flair?
I remember watching the first match, him and Flair.
Now, obviously, people didn't like the whole family man.
No, I didn't like that family gimmick. I didn't like it here. He comes down to the ring with the wife and
but in the ring, though,
in the ring, he was great. The first match, him and Flair, when he won the belt, that was a very good match. People don't talk about the second match, the 2 out of 3 falls at the Clash of the Champions. That was a classic. He made Ric Flair tap out twice. To that cross arm, that chicken wing, like what Bob Backlund almost used.
Yeah.
But his was double arm. Mm-hmm. Bob Backlund's won.
Now, see, I'm just a huge fan of Steamboat. Love his tag team stuff. Love his single stuff. Loved his stuff even in the early '90s of WCW. Loved his feud with Rick Rude.
I love him, Rude, and Austin. He had great.
Loved his feud with Stunning Steve when he was known. Loved his feud. He took Shane Douglas under his wing. Tag team champs at that time. The Dangerous Alliance was a big opponent for the Dangerous Alliance.
That was another great faction, a very great underrated faction.
Man, oh man, what a great faction that is! Rick Rude, Stone Cold, future Stone Cold,
Bobby Eaton,
and Larry Zbyszko. Medusa, Paul Heyman leading. That pack. Your thoughts on Terry Funk during this time? At
this time, Terry Funk, a man trying to make a comeback, and he made a comeback when he power drove Ric Flair on that table.
Golly.
Back then, right now it doesn't do that much, but back then you didn't see a lot of people using the table.
No, I think
not only that, that table too was solid wood. It didn't break.
No. What are your thoughts on Terry Funk, especially in the '80s? Because it's a lot different than what most people saw in ECW and WWF.
In the '80s, he was good. The classic match was Ric Flair. He even had a match with Sting.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Steamboat had a match with Terry Funk too, and it was a pretty good match. That was at the Clash of the Champions.
Okay.
That's when Lex Luger was turning heel and turned on Steamboat.
Damn, fucking Luger.
The match was pretty good. It was pretty epic, but at the end, well, you know how things turn. Terry Funk got his due on Steamboat, and then Luger comes out to try to help him and picks him up and double crosses him, and next thing you know, he's in the torture rack.
Damn. Ooh, but what great angles, right? You kind of ran one thing.
Terry Funk wasn't the greatest racer at that time, but his style that he used.
It was a hard style.
It was a hard style, and it worked.
Funk had been wrestling probably about since the '60s. Always changing, always adapting, almost every decade.
It was like the mid '60s.
Always adapting, to every style of the new decade. In the '80s he adapted, in the '90s he adapted, in the 2000s. So great dude. His Japanese stuff is great.
It's legendary. It's unbearable.
His matches with Bruiser, Brody, Stan Hansen, all those guys with Dory Funk,
his brother.
Yeah.
But I've seen a couple of tag team matches with Stan Hansen, Brody, and the Funks. Those matches were brutal.
Brutal. Highly recommend Terry Funk's Japanese matches. Highly recommend. You can find those on YouTube too. Those are very easily accessible.
Even just Bruiser, Brody, and Terry Funk, you can find it on YouTube too. Mm-hmm. I seen a one-on-one match in Japan. They didn't hold back.
No. In Japan, no, you don't hold back like the way you do here in the American style. Not at all.
They don't kid around over there.
No. How about we kind of transition to what many later considered the franchise of WCW? How about Sting, the man they call Sting,
the NWA? Man, Sting was one of the greats.
So charismatic.
He can talk. He had the look. Charismatic. The fans were behind him 100%.
What many people say should have been the Warrior. He was
the
NWA. He was like the perfect guy.
Yeah, he was the NWA version of the Ultimate Warrior.
But just a better wrestler, a better version,
better version, better wrestler, better off screen,
back screen, persona, behavior, everything. Yeah,
behavior. He would talk to you. He'd take advice, and not like the Warrior. Well, he'd go straight to his room and just shut himself from everybody else and just there just for himself and for the money.
Now Warrior probably had the better body.
He had the best body in wrestling.
Probably more charismatic, a little bit more charismatic. But I mean, Sting is probably your best all around dude.
All around.
I mean, he really became legendary.
He's what the fans attracted. When you see a guy with spikes and face paint.
Yeah.
That's like the little brother of the Road Warriors.
Now this is my favorite era of Sting. I love this Sting. I love it when he's outspoken. I love the yelling. I love the facial reactions.
Yeah,
this is my favorite era of Sting. The colorful attire. The different makeup on the face.
The jackets.
The jackets. His rivalries.
That's what Bret Hart would say. What do they call the Sgt. Pepper jackets?
Yeah.
Sgt. Pepper jackets.
But I mean, he's the one that did the sharpshooter and Scorpion Deathlock first.
He did it first, even though Bret Hart says he did it first. But no, that's all lies.
No.
Sting did it first.
No,
I don't remember seeing anybody else doing a Scorpion Deathlock for Sting. Do you?
They say it was more of a Japanese move, but I think he's the first one to kind of do it in the States. Now I could be wrong. I don't know. I've
only seen Sting doing it, and of course.
But I know he was doing it before Bret Hart.
Yeah. He was doing it way before Bret Hart.
Obviously, Bret Hart made it more popular. Obviously,
because he's on a bigger scale. That's why.
Bigger scale. Better name too. I think Sharpshooter.
Yeah, Sharpshooter.
And Scorpion Deathlock. That's.
I kind of like the.
I know, but it's a mouthful, right? It's kind of a mouthful.
Yeah, I like the Scorpion Deathlock.
But I mean, man, the Stinger Splash. When he gets so pumped up, he whipped the guy about to the turnbuckle. He goes
Stinger
and then
splash.
Boom, and you can tell when he's really excited. Because there's times when he almost goes over the damn guy, where he's like really excited. But
there's been a couple of matches that I've seen that maybe they probably didn't edit right, where he looked like he almost flipped over, but then caught himself.
Yeah. Like that's how into it he got. The people were so behind it.
That really one match was actually with Rick.
Yeah. But I mean, man, this guy is so exciting, so great. I know it's kind of going over the NWA, territory, but one of my favorite feuds, and I just read an article about this one. Him and Vader.
Oh,
love him and Vader. That's probably
those are Vader's best matches.
Yes, I think so too. I really do. The one guy I could believe that can take on Vader.
Sting.
As a kid, I was like, man, if anyone can beat this fucking guy, it's gonna be Sting.
Yeah, because Vader, he mauled over everybody.
Man, brutal matches. Vader, with his, Japanese strong style, just beating the shit out of people for real. Real.
And when they say that's the original Brock Lesnar right there was Vader.
Yeah. I mean, this guy, because he was used to that. He was used to that in Japan. He was used to that with Hansen and Brody and Inoki, and he was used to that kind of physical violence. And here, it was like he was really murdering people for real, like killing people.
Didn't he almost paralyze someone?
He almost paralyzed one person, yeah. So they had to kind of call Sting to kind of be like, okay, try to help this guy, trying to help this guy and kind of, get used to the American style, And he did, and man, just great matches. I love his feud with Vader. Love his feud with Cactus Jack.
Yeah, and that's another one.
Yeah.
Doesn't get talked about, Cactus Jack.
It doesn't get talked about a lot, no. But great feud.
When Cactus came out of that box.
Yeah. His feud with Rick Rude as well.
Oh, those are one of the best.
Love the feuds with Rick Rude.
Those are great matches. Oh no, Rude carried him half the time.
He did, but great stuff, great visuals. It was a great opponent for Rick Rude. Either when he was teaming up or going against Luger. Love those. I loved him and Luger as a team, and I loved it when they would go at it too. Him and Luger against the Steiner brothers.
Oh, do you remember that that first Super Bowl? Oh my God, I love that match. The Steiner brothers and the Sting and Luger. Man. That's one of the best tag team matches. If you want to watch a match, YouTube that match. Sting and Luger against the Steiner brothers. You'll get into that.
What year was that?
That was 1991.
1991. Again, like I said, when they teamed up or when they would go up against each other, loved it.
It draw.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, of course, him and Flair. The ultimate rivals, the ultimate NWA rivals, the ultimate WCW. WCW ended it with them. The WCW's last match ever was Sting and Flair.
That's Sting and Flair.
Which was perfect.
It's funny because they main evented the first Clash. They main evented the first Nitro, and they ended the last Nitro.
Yeah. But maybe one of the all-time best rivalries in wrestling.
I would say one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, I mean, most people when they think of Flair
in the '90s era, Sting and Flair.
Usually when younger fans kind of mention like their favorite Flair feud, most of the time Sting's name is the one that comes up more than anybody else.
And your older fans gonna say Flair and Dusty.
And Dusty, yeah. So it's kind of cool, right? For that, so for a lot of people, Sting's ultimate rival is Flair.
Flair.
Let's talk about some of the tag teams, man. How hot was Rock and Roll, and how hated was Midnight Express?
Oh my God! I listened to the Jim Cornette's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
As far as
great podcast, you should check it out.
Very great. You need to check it out. Look up Jim Cornette.
Drive-through.
He's got the drive-through. He's got plenty of old stories. Mm-hmm. He loves the old modern wrestling, and of course he hates some of the new stuff that's
some of the newer stuff. But he's coming around to like a lot of the guys. Some of the guys.
Some of the guys.
He loves FTR.
Oh, to him that's his totally enough.
Yeah. So he loves them.
And not only that, did you know that they also come out to the kind of like a
familiar Midnight Express thing. Almost, yes. I did hear that the other day. I was like, wow.
That's because they're paying tribute to Bobby.
And I think even some of the colors.
The late great Bobby Eaton.
Some of the colors too, I believe.
Yeah.
Too. They're
on some of the trunks they did that little line across the.
No, but I mean, people give Cornette a lot of shit, but he's a guy that built up that great roster of Batista, Cena, Orton, Lesnar, Shelton. He's the guy that was developing these guys for WWF. He's a guy in Ring of Honor that was pushing David Richards, that was pushing Kevin Owens. I know him and Kevin Owens don't see eye to eye.
Yeah, they don't.
But it was during it was during Cornette's run that Owens was the champion of Ring of Honor. He loves the Briscoe brothers.
He said if he could come back to wrestling, the only two teams he would manage would be FTR and the Briscoes. Only if he had the energy, the age, and the time.
He's the one that brought back Shelton and Charlie Haas. He kind of made them relevant again after they had got released. He loves the King of Wrestling, Chris Hero and Cesaro.
Oh, he speaks very, very highly.
Yeah, so I mean, this guy, he kind of gets a lot of shit, George, but I think it's kind of wrong because, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, he was doing a lot of revolutionary stuff with Smoky Mountain. It
was kind of like old school, Jim Crockett promotions almost.
Mm-hmm. But he was building up stars. A lot of stars got picked up by the WWF or WCW. And then OVW, just that roster alone of Cena, Orton, Brock. I mean, man, he gave them
a legendary lineup right there.
He gave them main events for years from that group, and that was from his development team, developmental, So he kind of gets a bad rap when he shouldn't, because everyone always says he's behind the times, but he's the one that gave him a lot of the modern wrestlers. So it's kind of funny. But tell me how hot Rock and Roll was.
Oh,
because a lot of people don't really know Rock and Roll. I mean,
picture the Von Erich feud with the Freebirds. That was just as hot, or maybe even a bit higher. As soon as you heard the Midnight Express come down the ring, you can hear the boos. Oof. You can hear the women and the people in the already getting after Jim Cornette. You'll see Jim Cornette, talking shit to the fans or getting ready to raise his racket. That's classic. I love that.
Now this is a feud that went from Texas to the Mid-South territory.
It actually started in World Class, and then they went to I guess where what's his name? Watts.
Bill Watts, the Mid-South.
Mid-South, and then from there it carried to the NWA.
But I mean, how great is that, right? The rivalry that just keeps carrying from one territory
never got old
to another territory to another. And because you have fresh, new fans, fresh faces.
And to me, I always thought that rivalry was an actual rivalry because one would actually lose to the other than when they would have, let's just say, Hogan and Macho, and Hogan won all the matches.
Yeah.
That's not really a rivalry.
That's not a rivalry.
These two actually, they would
trade belts.
They trade belts.
Yeah. They
will trade the World Tag Team titles. It's kind of funny because most of the time when the Rock and Roll were tag team champions, they lost it one time to them, but during title defenses they would beat them. But when it was like non-title matches or the Midnight Express, I always had the upper hand.
Now, there's about 3 versions, I believe, of Midnight Express. Which one's your favorite? There's the original without Jim Cornette. Then Jim Cornette
That's the
takes
original
over.
Midnight that Paul Heyman brought back.
And then there's the team that Jim Cornette managed, and then
To me, my original was my favorite, Bobby Eaton and Dennis Conner.
Okay, so that lineup.
That lineup.
Okay. Now, how do you feel about the Stan Lane lineup? Stan Lane, Bobby Eaton.
He took it to another level.
Yeah. Okay.
More finesse. He did more like the karate style, so he can actually go a little bit longer in the match and have more of a scientific match in the ring, because he also was with what's his name, Steve Curran.
Yes.
The fabulous ones.
Fabulous ones.
So
yes,
he was already coming in with experience.
Oh yeah. From Memphis to Mid-South, he had been around. Stan Lane had been around. He was no green dude, He was already seasoned.
He came in with finesse, and he came in with style.
Mm-hmm. Great voice too.
Yeah, great voice. And the women loved him too.
Oh man, yeah, they went crazy.
That didn't come Sweet Stan for nothing.
Any favorite Midnight Express rivalries that you love watching that you can put on? If you're like, man, I want to see some wrestling. Let me put on. Oh, you know what? Let me put on
If I
Midnight
want to
Express.
watch a Midnight Express, it's got to be a rock and roll.
Rock and roll. Okay.
But if I want to see an off match, I would rather see the Midnight and Fantastics.
Okay.
Fantastics is another underrated team.
Yeah.
They didn't get too much respect.
No.
But when they're in the NWA, they put some great matches, and also in world class. But when they got to the NWA, they just didn't get enough respect.
What about against these guys? Midnight against those guys.
Oh yeah, the scaffold match.
I mean, man, they beat the Road Warriors.
They beat the shit out of the Road Warriors the first time they made an impression on them.
I mean,
they knocked them out.
Yeah, I mean, how crazy was that? I mean,
they had Road Warrior Hawk laying on the ground outside the ring and Animal inside the ring.
And then you have like fucking Jim Cornette, that's just riling people up even more. I mean, just pissing people off.
That's what you call drawing heat.
Just pissing people off. This fucking nerd, standing behind his guys talking shit. It's like everyone just wants to, just, hey, let me get my hands. Let me get my hands on that dude, And so it's kind of cool, you had him going up against like Paul Ellering, the promos, the back and forth between the Road Warriors and Midnight and Paul Ellering and Jim Cornette.
Yeah, those are classic promos too.
Man,
you might want to check those out also on YouTube channel. Paul Ellering and Jim Cornette.
I mean, great stuff. What did you think about towards about the Midnight going up against the original Midnight? That's a pretty damn cool angle. And then
I saw that, I was like, no way. That's the original.
And what's funny is that the music never stopped, right?
No, the music.
They would come out with the music. The other team.
And then eventually, the other Midnight had to change their team.
And then you get another fucking manager, Paul Heyman, Paulie Dangerously.
That's the original Mouth of the South right there.
Man, just another guy that you want to beat the shit out of. It's just, man, this fucking guy, like, shut the fuck up. Yeah,
Paul, shut the fuck up, Heyman. Yeah, but he was another one. At that time, it was kind of. I wasn't big of a Paulie Dangerously fan.
At that point, I would say no.
But if you see it now, and then you kind of look at it, you think about it, man. You know what? We kind of actually missed out on a great rivalry right there. Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette, because those are the biggest manager personas in wrestling history.
You had one
aside of Bobby Heenan.
You had one with the big phone. You had one with the tennis racket. Yeah, everyone's always in agreement. Bobby Heenan's the manager, the top manager.
That's the man of man.
No one's ever going to top him as number one. I'm sorry.
To me, Bobby Heenan comes as number one.
There's a lot of people that say Jimmy Hart's work in Memphis is great. That if you ever want to see like the Mouth of the South at his peak, it's Memphis territory. Cornette, NWA territory, Heyman, probably ECW. But Bobby Heenan just never. You can never top that guy.
You can't top Bobby Heenan. He could talk, and he could take, and he could.
And he can bump too. Man, oh man, and he looks so funny doing it.
And I always loved him behind the broadcast with Gorilla Monsoon. Those was to me that's the best right there.
So I mean, it's so much good stuff, and you just can't believe what the hell happened. Just how the NWA kind of fell. I mean,
according to Jim Cornette, because of Jim Hurt, he ran off a lot of people.
But see, that was already sold already. They had already sold it. It was just WCW at this point. I mean, the NWA though, as a, it was the most dominant company from the 40s all the way up to the late 80s. I mean, we just discussed how all over the country, all over the world, the NWA was just so dominant, and to lose so much, it's kind of like, golly, what the hell happened? The angles were just better, the feuds were better, hotter. They were more violent. You have blood in matches. You really didn't see blood too much in the WWF.
You want to see managers involved too in the matches.
Yeah, managers, and that was the other great thing too, was managers. You had great mouthpieces for these guys. Precious Paul, J.J. Dillon, Jim Cornette, Paul Heyman, Baby Doll. On the WWE side, you have Bobby Heenan. That's mostly what you needed.
Mostly what you see, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got Jimmy Hart.
And Jimmy was good too, but
those are like pretty much the only main ones that stuck out, because no one.
Slick never really stood out.
Neither did Mr.
Sherry was great. Sherry was
good. I
really
like Sherry.
Good. But yeah, I don't know. You didn't have any opponent for Sherry, right?
Except for Miss Elizabeth, though, just a standing dud there.
Yeah, I don't know. Favorite NWA heavyweight match? Can you think of one that you just love? That you can watch anytime?
The world heavyweight, like for the world title?
For the world title.
Man, I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this too: have you ever seen the belt being defended live?
On live TV?
No, just live, like you in person seeing it.
No, I've never been to none of the events.
I got to see it once, which was very cool for me. It was at an RCW event. Nick Aldis was there. He was defending it against Lance Archer. And just to actually see the belt getting defended live was a big thrill for me. That was really fucking cool. And to hear, even the announcer, saying, this is sanctioned by the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance.
Listening to that.
Golly, that was so cool to hear, and it was a good match. It was a really good match, and Nick Aldis has done a good job with the belt.
Yeah, he did a real great job. I think he's got like the over 700 days with the title.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah. Which I don't know if that matters anymore now. It's not like in the old days, but that was a big thrill for me to actually see the belt live and to see it getting defended. That was huge thrill for me. For me, seeing the NWA title, it'd probably be Sting and Luger in '88. I can't remember the event, but it was a damn good match. It was a really good twists and turns in that match. I can't remember if it was
They fought each other?
Yeah. I can't remember what event it was, but
I kind of remember that one. I think they were both faces at the time, because I don't remember Sting being champion at the time.
No, Flair was champ. Because it was a great shot of him. He opens the robe, and it's a big gold belt.
Oh, okay.
At this point, but it's still called the NWA title. It's still
they called it the NWA title up until '91 when he left with the belt.
When it became and then when he left became like the WCW.
Then it became the WCW.
Yeah. Who's your favorite NWA tag team?
Favorite NWA tag team?
Road Warriors. Okay.
Number 2. It's kind of hard for me to decide, because I love both the Midnight and the Rock and Roll, so it's kind of hard to decide those two, because they both put on some brutal matches. Not only against another, but against other teams too.
Favorite feud?
Favorite feud too.
That too?
Yeah, too.
Yeah. Okay.
Rock and Roll Midnight.
And you say your favorite champion is Ric Flair,
Ric
right?
Flair.
Ric Flair.
Now let's ask this: favorite United States heavyweight champion?
You know what? For me, it'd be Rick Rude.
Rick Rude?
Yeah.
Me, Total Package.
Total Package. Man, the longest reigning U.S. champion still to this day. Still.
The Total Package is Lex Luger.
Like 520 something days. And
I believe so.
I think most of the time he was being managed by Harley Race, right? At that point?
No, when he was being managed by Harley Race, that's when he had the WCW title.
Oh, okay.
That's when he won the tournament. Him and Barry Windham had the steel cage match.
Nice.
The finals of the tournament went to Great American Bash 1991. The big surprise, Harley Race coming down the ring with Curtis Hughes, and one thing led to another. For some reason, I guess Harley Race distracted Wyndham. Luger got him up. Paul drove him after he had already been torture racked, and won the match, won the title.
Nice.
And the title that night was actually a 6-man title, and they put a little plate on top that said World Heavyweight Champion, because they were having a new belt made.
A new belt, okay.
Because Ric Flair took off with the gold belt.
They didn't pay him back his money. All he said was, "Give me my money, and you can have the belt back." You know,
I think it's about 30 grand or something.
25, I think, at that time. They were still under kind of like NWA rules.
Yeah.
You know, and Jim Herd was like, "No, I'm not gonna pay you that." You know,
I'm gonna make my own belt.
Yeah.
But even that belt too, that WCW was a real nice belt.
Oh yeah, yeah. The big gold belt. I think a lot of people love seeing that.
I'm talking about the WCW belt after that one.
Oh, okay,
That was a nice belt.
yeah.
That was a nice belt.
It's kind of smaller, right?
It's a little bit smaller.
Right.
It's got the little lines that says WCW.
Is that the one that Ron Simmons had?
Yeah, that's
the one. Okay.
I like that one. That was a nice belt.
Okay. Favorite feud of the NWA during that time?
At that time of the 91?
No, the 80s.
The late 80s?
Or any part of the 80s.
Another one that no one really don't get really talked about, Sting and Dusty and the Road Warriors. I like to watch that. That's when the Road Warriors turned on them.
Yeah. If you could have anyone from the NWA go against Hogan, who would it have been at that time?
At that time, of course, Ric Flair.
Ric Flair?
But then again, too, I kind of look at it. At that point, maybe Sting, maybe Luger go up head to head with Hogan.
How cool would it have been to see 84, 85 Kerry Von Erich going up against Hogan?
That's real nice.
Right?
I would like to see Kerry at that time because he was at his peak right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Can you imagine that time period against
Hogan?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it would draw money. And that one you could put in a dome.
Put it here in Texas. I was gonna say put it in Texas.
Oh, Texas Stadium right away.
Yeah.
Either that or the Astrodome.
Yeah. What about who would you have said was the number one tag team for WWF in the 80s? Would you say Demolition or would you say Heart Foundation or Bulldogs?
That one is kind of tricky because, you had the three best tag teams in the WWF, which was the Heart Foundation, the Bulldogs, and Demolition. I will have to go with the Heart Foundation.
Okay, Heart Foundation, say it's your ultimate team. Who would you put up against? NWA tag team. What NWA tag team would you put up against Heart Foundation?
I would put the Rock and Roll.
Really? Not Road Warriors?
Not the Road Warriors because they've already faced the Road Warriors.
No, but I'm talking about like in the 80s.
In the 80s?
The ultimate, yeah.
That'd be kind of tricky too. I'd probably want to do Rock and Roll and Road Warriors against Heart Foundation at the time. Maybe because I'm a little greedy.
You know what? I had this dream card where it was going to be a WarGames. It was going to be Midnight and Heart Foundation versus the Rockers and Rock and Roll.
Oh,
I would have loved to have seen that one in a WarGames.
I would have liked to see that one in the WarGames too.
Yeah, like Heart Foundation when they're heels. Man, I think that would be
with
great.
Jimmy and Jim Cornette inside the.
Man, can you imagine that?
Oh my God! I just thinking about it. I can see Jimmy Hart running around that damn game, not trying to get out.
What about say for the IC title? Who would you have going up against your United States? And it doesn't matter who it is. Like who would be your ultimate like for the second? Behind the main event.
Okay. For the Intercontinental title, I would look to see, I don't know why, Warrior versus Luger.
Ooh, nice.
Just a battle of physiques.
Nice.
Finesse, look.
Can you imagine if Luger got Warrior in the rack? In the torture rack?
Oh,
or you see Warrior picking up
Luger? I would
Luger
love to see
like
Warrior up there or picked up. Or Luger picked up.
Okay, for the U.S. belt.
For the U.S. belt, Rick Rude. I would say Rick Rude against Sting, but we already saw that one.
But we're talking about the 80s, huh?
The 80s. At that time, they were both real good. Rick Rude with the curly hair this time.
Ooh.
Curly hair this time.
Okay. How about a grudge match? Give me a grudge match.
A grudge match? WWE, WF? Let me see.
Hey, remember, at this time, you got guys like Jake the Snake. You got, Mr. Perfect's there already. You got Tito still. You got Martel. You got Rick Martel there. You have Mr. Wonderful. You have Piper. You have JYD. You have Hacksaw. You have DiBiase there still roaming around. You got Andre there in this.
It's kind of hard to find a match with Andre because only so many people can have a match with him. But a young Andre?
Ooh, man.
How about like a young Andre, maybe like Bruiser Brody?
Oh, man.
Bruiser Brody in his prime and Andre, that's what I want to see.
Man, oh, man.
Even though it's not NWA, but that's something I always wanted to see.
Bruiser Brody really stuck with the NWA, though. If it was Japan, it was the NWA territory. If it was Puerto Rico, that's an NWA territory. World class, because he loved Fritz Von Erich. World class, NWA territory.
Yeah, those two are... He's the only... Fritz is the only booker that
he never really, because
he knew not to fuck with him. That's why.
And you know what's cool about Bruiser Brody too? Because obviously we know now Andre wasn't 7'4". I think they said he was like about 7'1", 7'1".
They just built him a 7'2".
Bruiser Brody is like what?
6'8",
6'8", 6'9". Can you imagine that visual of them two? Because Hogan already looked like he was almost as tall as Andre in WrestleMania 3.
Yeah,
and Hogan was like 6'8".
That was old Andre.
Yeah, but still, I mean, straight up, they're both straight up, you know, and they're almost like right there. But that visual of like a wild hair Andre and Bruiser Brody.
Yeah, that's the match that I want, even though we'd never see it. Maybe it's up there in the wrestling heavens, but Andre and Bruiser is one match I always want to see.
Okay. Hardcore match. If you had a hardcore match.
If I had a hardcore match, let me see. It's kind of tough because back then you didn't have too many hardcore wrestlers.
No, but you know, NWA though kind of gave you about, you know, an image of who can be hardcore. You know, because you know all the gimmicks that Dusty would put in. You know, I mean the chain match with them in the Koloffs, that was very violent.
Yeah, that was a violent for that time. I would say maybe Dusty.
Ooh, Dusty always bleeding. Always bleeding.
Dusty, maybe who can I throw in there? Orndorff was double tough.
Man, Mr. Wonderful?
He was double tough.
Yeah. That's a good one. I'd like to see that one. You imagine him trying to get Dusty Rhodes in the power driver?
The power driver. Picking up that big guy, huh? But
and Wonderful, you know, one of the best physiques too in that time.
He was one of the best physiques. He could talk, but he was double. He can go fisticuffs with you.
He was
That's
tough.
why I would put him with Dusty to see who could clash and who could prevail and
yeah,
fall.
You know what was actually really good was the Dusty Rhodes. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was on Superstar Billy Graham's DVD. When him and Dusty went at it in the Texas Bull Rope.
And Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that was actually really good, and that was actually pretty. You know, I was like, wow, it was pretty damn violent. You know, that was a pretty good match. I was actually surprised. I was like, wow, that was a really good match.
Wow.
You know,
I gotta check that one out too. I know I've seen clips of it, but I've never seen the whole match.
Now
I might have to borrow that DVD from you.
Okay. Now this is one that I was kind of interested that people kind of have been throwing at me. Survivor Series type match. Team WWF, Team NWA. Survivor Series rules.
Flair, Dusty, Luger,
Damn.
Sting,
Damn.
and I guess I would throw Wyndham.
Ooh, Barry. Okay, man, that's a powerhouse team right there for NWA.
Or not, maybe Magnum if Magnum wasn't injured.
Who would you have more though, Barry or Magnum?
That one I think I'd rather go with Magnum.
Ooh, shit. Okay.
That's a mega team right there.
So it's Flair, Dusty, Sting, Luger, and Magnum. Okay, Team WWF.
Team WWF. Hogan, Warrior, Rude,
Damn.
Andre, and I guess I could probably throw in there maybe Jake.
Okay, I thought you were gonna put Macho in there.
Well, we could do Macho too. It's just like kind of like Wyndham and
Yeah, but who would you have though, Jake or Macho?
I think I'd take Macho.
Okay, now who wins this Survivor Series? Who's the ultimate survivor at the end? Who gets their hand raised?
I would say Flair in the end. I see maybe Hogan probably getting counted out.
Okay, so who's in there last with Flair?
I would probably have to go with Macho.
Macho Man being the last survivor. Okay. Now does he eliminate, or who gets eliminated from Team NWA?
Who gets eliminated first from Team NWA? I guess probably Luger.
Luger. Okay. And what
Knocked
about the
out
other
by
guys?
Andre.
What about the other guys? Anybody else, or everyone else stays?
Now, Luger goes off first, and then on the other side, I would say Warrior counts out.
Okay. Maybe him like brawling, right?
Yeah,
like how he
brawling
did with
outside.
Demolition and Powers of Pain, right? Okay.
And I could see after that, Andre, being disqualified for, not letting go of the chokehold and choking Magnum.
WarGames, Team WWF, Team NWA. Would that be the same team?
I would go with something different that we don't.
Okay.
We don't have the audience listen to the same wrestlers. I would go with Road Warriors, Rock and Roll, and maybe who's another one? Who's another one I could probably put in there? I think I'd go with Arn.
Arn. Okay.
We need somebody to start the War Games.
All right. Team WWF.
Team WWF against Heart Foundation, Bulldogs.
Ooh, golly.
And maybe Rick Martel. Martel got some class.
Rick Martel, I mean, Flair rates him very highly when he was a champ for the AW.
AW was a great
He
champ.
said he was, at that time, top 5 wrestler. That's how Flair rated him at one time.
And he's a very underrated wrestler. Very, very
yeah.
underrated.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he gets lost kind of like in the WWF shuffle, you know, especially with the model gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like everyone kind of forgets about, you know, his whole.
They forgot about him being a former world champion.
A world champion, yeah. So I mean, in a way, that
and it doesn't matter if it was AWA or Mid South, he was still a former world champion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, AWA, maybe the second most important title, probably for a good while. You know, before WWF overtook him. You know, I would say the AWA belt was probably your second most important belt.
Second most.
You know, for a good while.
Because it's more recognized because it's older than it's as old as the NWA.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, I would say maybe until 83, maybe it was the second most important. You know, because I mean,
when Hogan left, that's when
people really wanted Hogan to win the title. I mean, that would have been a big deal if he had won the AWA World Title.
Do you think if he would have won the title, would he have made that jump in 83? I don't think.
You don't think he goes?
Maybe in 85, but then you would have missed out WrestleMania 1.
Oh yeah, no, WrestleMania 1 would never have happened without Hogan.
And they would have probably got pushed a year later. Then.
That would have been something, though, right?
And then that messes up your key dynamic of what the future comes ahead of you. You know.
Now let me ask you something, because I've heard Flair say this. He says that if Hogan was in the NWA, he would have been the opening match. Do you believe that? I don't believe that.
I don't believe that
because
at all.
Hogan got over in the WWF areas, and then he got over in the AWA. I think he would have been just fine in the NWA. I think he would have got over.
He would have been the side of Dusty. He would have got higher than Dusty because Dusty's Dusty.
Oh yeah,
but he would have played second fiddle to Dusty Rhodes.
But I think he would have been just fine. I think he would have been a main event guy. I don't think Flair's right that he would have been the opening match.
Nah, he wouldn't.
The man has too much charisma to be let down in an opening match.
And he's too big of a name, too big of a star.
And like I said,
even for that time.
He dominated, you remember how big the AWA territory is. The AWA covered a lot of territory.
Mm-hmm. And all the Midwest.
And then, the WWF territory. So, I mean, he already had pretty much covered half the country by that point. So, yeah, I don't think Hogan would have.
Now, Hogan would have been just fine.
Yeah.
He may not have the belt, but,
But you know what? I think eventually he would have.
He would have been like a version of the AWA version of Hogan. He wouldn't have had the title, but he would have been like those matches against one of Vern Gagne.
But you know what? I wonder
ended in disqualification.
I wonder
or countdowns.
I wonder what NWA, what kind of Hogan they would have got in the NWA. Would they have got a Japanese Hogan, or would they have got like an AWA kind of like?
They would have definitely not gotten a WWF version.
No, WWF. They obviously Vince probably told him, don't do a lot of shit.
Yeah.
He was a golden goose. You're not gonna get your goose hurt, right? Unnecessarily, right? I mean, but
you would have probably got the version of him maybe in Japan, because I've seen a couple of matches with him and Abdullah the Butcher.
Everyone says that his stuff in Japan is way different than his American stuff. You would
have probably got that version.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a match with him against the Road Warriors?
Yes, he teamed up with the Great Buddha in '91.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty intense.
that was intense, and for that time, against the Road Warriors?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a really fun period, and it kind of sucked, it hurt me when after seeing, Shane Douglas, throw the NWA title.
Yeah, that was the greatest went
down.
He threw history down the toilet.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of sucks, and it's kind of good that they're back, doing okay under Billy Corgan. It's good.
And that's great. A rocker, a musician, restored professional wrestling, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. But I mean, man, what a time it was in the 80s, though. What a time watching NWA wrestling.
It'll never get that hot again.
It'll never be that hot. The fans will never react the way it was at that time. So
they won't even complete. Yeah, you may get a few CM Punk chants, but
nothing
it's
like
gonna be like
nothing like the pops you used to get for
at that
every
time,
kind of wrestler.
Yeah, because at that time, the only other era I was getting was the Attitude Era. In WWF, they were getting those kind of pops, but it still didn't measure up to the pops in the end because they popped for every single match from top to bottom.
I mean, like I say, you would see people go crazy for Von Erichs. You would see people go crazy for Flair, for the Road Warriors, for Dusty, for Steamboat. I mean, people just went apeshit for rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
They booed who they needed to boo. They cheered who they needed to cheer. So I mean, it was a great time. To see all that kind of stuff. So. So
I got a question now for you, Kat.
All right.
WarGames match. Non-WWE, non-NWA.
Okay, so anybody. Okay.
Throw me a punch.
Okay, well, I would like to have Kerry, Von Erich, Hogan, Give me Steamboat. And let me see. Give me Lawler.
No, that's another good one.
On their team. That's 4. And and give me Paul Ellering for their manager. Over here, give me Flair. Give me Terry Funk. I want Terry Funk. Give me DiBiase. I'll take DiBiase. And you know what? Maybe Bruiser Brody.
Yeah, that's another one I was thinking
And
about
give
right
me Bobby the Brain to lead that group.
To lead that group? Man, that's a good one. For mine, it would be Terry Von Erich, Hulk Hogan. I don't know why I don't know why I'm gonna put this one. Warrior.
All right, man. That's a great image right there.
Yeah. Unlike the Warrior that ripped the cage and left the cage. Rude.
Oh, Rude on that team. Okay.
You gotta have Rude. And maybe Gino.
Gino. Okay.
Gino.
Okay.
Being led down the ring. That's more of a, I would say, I don't know. Maybe more part. I don't know. I think I'll just have them go down individually.
All right. Okay.
And against Flair, who else can I put in there? Andre. Dusty team up with him for once.
Hey, Dusty.
Dusty team up with
Dusty
him.
and Flair on the same team.
And throw Magnum. And why not Bruiser?
Bruiser Brody. Okay. All right. That's a hell of a WarGames.
That's a hell of a WarGames. Now that one can be led by J.J. Dillon.
Ooh, JJ, man, leading Dusty down.
And let these guys be the heels.
Man. Oh, a heel Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, heel Dusty Rhodes.
Okay. You see, what's hard for me to see too is like Rude on that side too with all those guys, especially since he had a rivalry with all 3 of them.
Yeah. Switch it up a bit. Yeah. You never seen a face Rude. You get your face Rude right there.
I've never seen
That's
Rude
called
as a
dream
good
match.
guy. Never saw him once as.
I don't think. I think one time he was face when he attacked Vader in WCW. He attacked him, but then the back injury happened.
Yeah.
Because they were supposed to start a feud in '94.
Okay, that would have been something.
According to Bischoff, that's all. That's why Rude's reign ended in '94 because they're gonna turn him face.
Okay.
To face Vader.
Damn, that would have been something.
I would have liked seen that one.
That would have been something. George, is there anything, any matches you want to recommend before we go? Anything that you want to recommend to anyone that they should go out and check out?
Modern era, old era?
Anything.
I don't know, but it would have to be definitely a Road Warriors match. I would say one of my favorite matches with the Road Warriors, of course, the Scalpel match.
Against who? Midnight? Is it with the one where Cornette breaks his knees?
The only breaks his knees falling off the scalpel. I still love that match to this day.
For me, definitely Clash of the Champions '88. I mean, I was blown away by Sting and Flair. It ends in a draw. Spoiler alert. It ends in a draw, but man, the emotion that Flair leads in that match, you need to check that match out. And it doesn't even seem like when you're watching it, it doesn't seem like it's 45 minutes.
It don't seem like it's 45 minutes.
No, and it just builds and builds the intensity. I mean, man, Sting is fucking great. The way the crowd pops, I would recommend that one very heavily. The Steamboat Flair matches, you can always watch any of those 3. Those are fucking great. The Terry Funk and then the Terry Funk and Flair match that happened after that series, it's always great too. That's a really fun match because anyone that really loves Terry Funk's work as the hardcore legend will get a glimpse of him right here. The Road Warriors versus the Koloffs, great stuff. Love those matches,
especially with the Road Warriors running down the ring with the AWA titles. I mean, that's just insane. It gives you chills just looking at it.
Yeah, the Von Erichs Freebirds, guys, check those out. It doesn't matter if it's a 2-on-2, a 3-on-3. The reactions to these, I mean, man, again, the people go apeshit with the Von Erichs. They boo the hell out of the Freebirds. Look at the mannerisms. Look at the way they carry themselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, the Von Erichs against Chris Adams and Gino.
Yeah.
Those are great ones too.
You want to watch some hardcore matches from the NWA? Watch Bruiser Brody and Abdullah the Butcher. I mean, anywhere in Puerto Rico, in Texas, anywhere.
Just pull it up and press the screen.
Man, oh man.
Every match is great.
You'll see how big of an influence that Bruiser Brody was for a lot of these guys in the 90s. I mean, golly, it was crazy.
He influenced a whole generation of hardcore wrestling.
George, he really didn't get to mention it, but, you know, he loves Kevin Sullivan's work during this period, you know, when he was leading almost like his Satan worshipers.
His Satan worshipers, I remember.
You know, down in Florida, you know.
And Purple Haze. Woman.
She was, the Fallen Angel?
The Fallen Angel. And if nobody knows, he was also with Luna Vachon.
Luna looked fucking nuts, too. In the footage that I saw from Dark Side of the Ring, she looked fucking even crazier than how she looked in the WWF.
Just her starting out. It's that spookiness, that aroma around her.
Yeah, I mean, George is
the
huge.
Fallen Angels, her team, which one of them actually later became Gangrel and her future ex-husband.
Both, I think, are ex-husbands. You know, Sullivan was great at this time.
Yeah, at this time he was having great brutal matches with Blackjack Mulligan.
Scaring
Check
people.
Those out also.
Legit scaring people. Like, really legit scaring people, thinking that he was like a real Satan worshiper.
Yes. I remember having a conversation with one of my buddies one time while I was at work, that he was actually in the arena that night. The night Kevin Sullivan showed up at the Hemisphere Arena, the lights went out. He was feuding with they brought him in to help feud with the Sheepbirders. The lights went out. Kevin Sullivan was in the ring, full of snakes, and the crowd just went absolutely ballistic. And people were scared that Kevin Sullivan was in the building, because at that time he was at his heaviest, where he was leading the army of darkness, and they wanted nothing to do with him.
People were scared. You would never see this kind of stuff in the WWF TV. Never. You would never see this kind of stuff. I mean, it was just so exciting. The bloodbaths in Puerto Rico. Look at Carlos Colon and whoever, Flair, against Bruiser Brody, against Abdullah the Butcher.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. You'll see these guys with the old school guys with the fucking scars.
They're like just like New Jack, but worse.
Worse. I mean, you know, where you can stick a quarter in the fucking scars, you know.
I think you put a $50 in there, you probably get change back.
I mean, man, you know, you go to the Puerto Rico territory, bloodbaths, the Texas area. We didn't even really touch. I mean, golly, the Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez.
I think that should be another subject you should talk about.
You know, I mean, golly, them against the Von Erichs. Yeah, I mean, you just had so much good rivalries. You even had NWA versus AWA champions. You know, Nick Bockwinkel will go up against, you know, Harley Race sometimes.
Oh yeah, they had
Martel and Flair would go at it. Yep. You know,
they weren't sanctioned because they did their own events. They weren't broadcasting it, but they did it behind the scenes.
Yeah,
they wouldn't promote them.
Yes, I mean, a lot of great stuff. And then, you know, Mid-South was not technically an NWA territory, but he worked with a lot of NWA, you know, wrestlers. Mm-hmm. He had Flair come in a lot of times. He had Harley come in. You know, those were always cool. You know, I always hear the match Cornette talks about is Michael Hayes and JYD.
Oh yeah, the famous blind match.
Yeah, 60,000 people came to see that match at the Omni. 60,000 people. I mean, golly.
Man, just hearing the Omni, man, it makes you want to go to YouTube and watch. You know,
it does. Yeah. Just
the world the it's not only also just the matches, the fans, but also the famous arenas like the Omni in Atlanta, in North Carolina. Was it the one over there in They just did AEW.
The Greensboro.
Greensboro.
Man, Greensboro, hotbed. I mean, golly, and you think that these are smaller areas, and they're not. Like, you know, whenever the Von Erichs would do, like, Texas Stadium, it'd be like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. Carlos Colon would have sellouts like crazy whenever he would have, like, Flair, Harley,
that famous baseball arena that they would be in.
You know, thousands of people. The Mid-South territory, whenever there was a hot angle, I mean, they would fill up that Omni, you know, 30,000 people.
The Omni's famous. Too bad it's long gone.
But, you know, I mean, it was like...
Wrestling history.
They talk about, like, you know, WWF having these mega, you know, sellouts. But, I mean, man, all over the country, you know, the NWA was having those kind of, you know...
It's like each single promotion always had their home.
Yeah.
For me, it was always Greensboro for the NWA, Jim Crockett Promotions, and also the Omni, the WWF, of course, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
The AWA, Can you help me out on that one?
The AWA, golly, it was like Chicago. I think Chicago? was their main area.
Like AEW right now, Chicago.
Yeah,
home base.
yeah. So AWA, I think Chicago would be there, or yeah, pretty much there. I know they would control a lot of area, but Chicago, Illinois always seemed to be like their main hotspot. So, well, I mean, this was great. I've been wanting to talk about the NWA for a long time, and unfortunately, this had to happen. I wish CM would have been here.
Oh yeah, CM's my little brother.
Yeah.
Get better soon, bud, and hopefully we'll see you soon, and I'll make another appearance one day.
Yeah. So, George, thank you for kind of getting this off my chest. I've been wanting to talk about some of these, great wrestlers, these great moments for a long time.
Bud.
So
I'm here whenever you want to dial. You call me, pick me up, and we'll do another show together. And let everybody out there know, about our favorites, what they've missed out on. Give them up to speed on them, and then just talk about the matches and the actual feuds and what's going on.
And check out our recommendations again. I mean, they're on YouTube. They're readily available. Or you can go to CD Exchange and probably pick up a lot of good DVDs for like $7.99, $8.99.
Yeah, but you won't see the classic matches you was on YouTube though.
No, not on those. But maybe you can get lucky with some of them. So this is Double A here with special guest Big George, Loverboy Jorge DeLeon. Thanks again, George, for coming and filling in.
Thank you for the invite, and hopefully I can come back one day and maybe we can have Charlie on the show.
Yeah. Sam would definitely have loved this right now. So
we have a good triple threat and get more input.
Yeah, right, triple threat. Nice.
And maybe we could probably even do old WWF.
Yeah. So
or Attitude Era, whichever you guys want to talk about. It don't matter to me.
Guys, remember today's Thursday, tomorrow's New Year's Eve. Guys, have a great New Year's Eve. Stay safe out there. It's getting fucking crazy out there with all the coronavirus. So please be safe.
Wear your mask wherever you go.
Wear masks. Sanitize. Lysol the hell out of your area. So guys, be safe out there. Have a happy New Year's. Hope everyone stays safe. And we'll see you next year. And hopefully CM will be with us next year too. So,
yes, sir.
So all right,
CM.
All right, guys. We'll see you. We'll see you next week, and have a great New Year's.
Take care, guys. Happy New Year.